Next question, yes sir.
Branded containers, we have a second on 8 and 9 to drop on Solaris platforms.
Okay, so the question is, can I take my Solaris 8 and 9 containers and run them on Solaris 11? So at this time, we are not, what can I say here? As far as I know, we're not planning on doing Solaris 8 and 9 containers for Solaris 11. However, what we've always told people who ask us about that is it probably depends most on market demand. So right now our recommendation is to run your Solaris 8 and 9 environments on Solaris 10. Solaris 10 continues to be, fully supported on all the modern hardware. So for now, that's where we see people going. Solaris 8 is getting really long in the tooth at this point in terms of, it's now a 10-year-old operating system, I think.
Yeah, it's actually going to hit 12 years on March 31st when the end of service life occurs for it. So. Yeah, so interestingly enough, just as a very quick aside, at Oracle, there's a new support policy that's been added to the portfolio that didn't exist previously at Sun, which is called sustaining support. So when Solaris 8 reaches its end of service life under standard support policies on March 31st of next year, you will still be able to buy something called sustaining support, which is otherwise known as indefinite or lifetime support, which allows you to maintain support for that system going forward, continue to get access to the knowledge base and existing patches for that system, and if you have compliancy needs or other things, it will continue to be supported going forward. So it's something that Oracle offers that actually Sun did not. There's a question. Yes, sir.
In 11, are you going to bring x86 and Spark quirks closer together?
x86 and Spark what's closer?
Quirks.
Yeah, we're gonna take the quirks of each and add it to the other.
Differences, oddities.
We're gonna add a BIOS to Spark.
And we're gonna make the x86 box run forth.
And we're going to add S-Bus slots to all our x86 boxes. We sprinkle fourth dust over everything. No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to make fun of you.
Could you be more specific?
Yeah.
I've got x86 boxes, I've got Spark boxes. I go to implement a command on one, do it on the other, and very untoward things happen.
You're talking about something like PRT diag?
Well, that's a minimal problem because that just doesn't give me shit, as opposed to other commands that break things severely.
So can you be more specific on the other commands? Because I know a few things that are more general, like LDOMs versus Zen or other things like that. Can you be more specific on some of the commands that are at issue?
Using remote console through virtual systems on an x86 box.
Different than Spark.
Not so good.
So this would be like a terminal type issue or something like that?
No, your Java interface.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not Solaris we're talking to, unfortunately. You're talking to components that are delivered with the platform.
I'm sorry. They've got a Sun logo on the front.
Yeah, I understand.
You sold them to me.
I understand. Yes. It's just difficult for the Solaris group to fix the problem with the iLog. We'd like to, though.
I do know that as time goes by, those teams have become actually more consolidated together. So they are trying to get to greater
parity.
Yeah.
Well, not only parity, but also like hopefully common implementation, common platforms. But to be honest with you, I mean, it would be disingenuous of me to say that the system management stuff has been anything but an alphabet soup of different technologies over the years. I actually am not really up to date on where we are right now.
It definitely seems like we're moving in a direction where they are sharing more and more technology, for good or bad, given your, depending on your current complaints. But at least that they're moving in a unified direction so that complaints can be made, generically rather than independently.
The Ops Center product might be something to look at. I don't have a specific recommendation here, but I know that one of its strengths is to kind of paper over some of the differences between those things. And for example, it knows how to do things like upgrade the firmware of like every kind of different Sun box that it supports, which is a lot of them, I guess. So if you have a need to like keep all your firmware up to date, keep your BIOSes up to date, or not BIOS, but your ILOM software and all kinds of stuff up to date, it can do that, and it knows how to talk to the ILOM over the network to, you know, reset the box and do all the other kinds of stuff that you can do.
Yeah, the one specific thing is in Solaris 11 Express, we are moving towards a more unified firmware update strategy. We actually got FW config in order to deploy new firmware a little bit more consistently.
FW Flash.
FW Flash, yes, thank you, sorry. Not my specific area, but there at least is improvement in that area. It's not, you know, I wouldn't claim it to be consistent yet, but it is, there's recognition that having a billion different ways to do it isn't totally rational, so.
HP runs through the same issues.
It does make us feel better. Big company. There's always a tension between innovation and consistency, and this is what, and sometimes we succeed in one direction, and sometimes we, you know.
When you succeed, it's called innovation. When you fail, it's called inconsistency.
Yeah, there's, as many people have said, when we're, you know, release a new version of Solaris, they often, you know, well, like our comment about SMF, right? It was inconsistent, but it also succeeded. So it was change is hard. And in this particular area, this is an ongoing problem, especially when you know, you get kind of stuck with it, right? Because it's a feature of the hardware, and once you buy that hardware, that particular feature is there forever for the lifetime of that platform.
Yes, sir.
So that FW Flash utility you mentioned, is there an aim of that to make it so that I don't have to boot stupid DOS disks ever again to flash random SCSI cards and all that crap? I mean, everything's different.
For at least some scenarios. I don't want to like overpromise here, okay?
There's an ongoing issue here because the vendors of those cards,
They suck, yeah.
They're lovely people.
For any of you who've ever worked in that space, you know, if it worked on Windows XP and could be configured with DOS, it was considered to be finished. And this has been an ongoing problem, and we have the same problem with flashing BIOSes. Fortunately, that's been fixed for our own hardware, but it's still a, you know, if you look at random third-party equipment, it's boot the CD it came with and install a new version of the ROM. So it's a problem we'd like to solve. We'd like to say that we've solved it for our own hardware. For all third-party hardware, it's going to be very difficult.
Are there standards? Like, is anyone driving the standards so that we can go away eventually?
The biggest thing I know about on x86 is the sort of looming transition to EFI. But I don't really know in terms of flashing firmware. EFI, for those who don't know, is, I have no idea what it stands for. Extended firmware, I don't know. I'll make something up. Extended firmware or something.
Extensible firmware interface.
Extensible firmware Intel? No.
Firmware interface.
Anyway,
Interface or implementation.
EFI for folks who have, what systems have EFI today? There's some, yeah. Was it? Does Apple have EFI?
Apple does it, and some of the newer Intel motherboards are starting to support it.
So EFI is sort of going to, you know, break over the whole industry in the next couple of years. And so we have to be
including
ready.
us.
We have to be ready for that, and hopefully EFI definitely blows away some of the old irrationalities of the legacy BIOS stuff.
16-bit programming modes and all sorts of craziness. I mean, EFI definitely makes that better. Queryable properties, the BIOS, all sorts of good things. So, I mean, we're looking forward to that. But
Boot off a 3 terabyte drive.
Yeah, well, and honestly, that's the biggest single driver of it right now is that the disk capacities have gotten to the point where we can't actually use the existing firmware implementations and the existing program.
You'll notice that drives are not increasing in size.
Is OBP going to go the way they go in favor of EFI?
Is what?
Which Paul?
Is OBP going to die in
No.
favor of EFI?
Is OBP going to die? No. Not that I've heard. We've still got 10 people in the world to know fourth working for us.
If anyone knows fourth, we should talk.
All right. Gentleman in the light blue shirt, you had a question?
Oracle will no longer sell me a workstation. So
They won't sell us one either.
so if I need to get form factor,
And that starts to worry me about device driver support over time, especially as technology evolves. So what is Oracle's strategy in Solaris now for making sure that device drivers do get supported for new devices as they show up?
We have a key partnership with Intel. Intel does a lot of joint development work. In fact, they're probably the largest third party, other than maybe Fujitsu, that's doing third-party development work. A large portion of that relates to device drivers. It's not just their focus on things like motherboard and chip implementations and what they will do with Tandem or Westmere, but it's a lot on the NIC interfaces and other things. Oracle's view also is that we do want to maintain some level of basic support for some of the most common drivers. One of the other things that we have to recognize is the vast majority of folks today, and many of you here, probably aren't running Solaris on your desktop by default. You're SSHing into it, or you're using VirtualBox or other solutions to actually interface into the technology set. And we need to make sure we're very, very good at that. So we want to continue to maintain some base support, so common systems, whether it be MacBook Pros, which is what a lot of us run, or a few small sets of recommended systems are functional in that space if you want native support, as well as covering a broad set of systems that we probably can't cover across everything. That was an issue at Sun as well, right? That didn't really change with the Oracle acquisition. Many years ago, Sun made the decision to stop doing workstations. This has nothing to do with Oracle. It is really the recognition that most people are developing towards server-based programming today are doing it on Windows and Linux. Some Mac, particularly in North America, and a few other markets. But we need to handle that through mechanisms of enabled remote development, whether that's SSH, whether that's cloud-based services, or other things to ensure that you have the tools you need to continue to administer and develop applications for our compute systems.
I will say, as a Solaris developer who runs Solaris on its desktop, the kernel group continues to run Solaris on their desktop, of course. And we run the kernels we generate.
Not just the kernel group, the whole Solaris group.
Yeah. We have the best, as you probably recognize, if you get something with Intel or AMD, also works with Intel hardware and NVIDIA graphics, and you're generally in pretty good shape. You may need to throw in a third-party NIC card if you're so unlucky to have something from Broadcom. If the system motherboard is Broadcom, but any Realtek chip, any Realtek Ethernet card will work, and we support those very nicely. They're $10 at sale. So that's what we do. So
I'll add that we also have very good agreements now as part of Oracle with HP and Dell to continue to certify their systems on Solaris as well. And I suspect that there will be others added to that. We have over 1,000 certified third-party systems on our hardware compatibility list, and we will continue to drive that forward. I think you were next. Then we'll get to you. Sir.
Many things that are new with Oracle. Many great things happen, but one of the sad things from Oracle was the vacuum of information, and particularly from startups. Like, we're looking at, okay, I want to run, Open Solaris on EC2, and that's cool, but I don't know whether I'm going to get a Solaris 11 Express on EC2. And that means that at the end of the day, the business decision has to be, that's dead. Yeah. Without information, that's dead. So I'm going to go with Linux. And that sucks, because Linux just isn't all that with, for certain applications. So what's the strategy for actually making information available rather than going, it doesn't ship, we're not going to do anything?
So this is something we've heard once or twice, I suppose. The short answer is, over the last, I guess it's been, November, acquisition closed in January, I think, of this year, so over the last approximately 10 months, Oracle has learned more and more about kind of running an operating system in a hardware group and how to work in that space. And decisions that were made initially have evolved over time. We've added third-party hardware support that initially wasn't part of the core sets of strategies. and we've become more open about some of the communication. We're here talking about, to a certain extent, what we're doing in futures. We ramped up some of the activities starting over the summer with a lot of the data center efficiency events where we went out and we started delivering public roadmaps for Spark, our x86 gear, and Solaris. We started communicating in front of the release of Solaris 11 at Oracle Open World this year as well, and talked a lot about what we were doing. So there's a significant recognition of the fact that we need to be a little bit more open about directionally where we're going. But there's also the reality that from a business standpoint, we need to make proper business decisions about where customers are and how to support you, and where we can make money at the end of the day to a certain extent, because Sun didn't exactly do the best job on that front. And so we need to make the right choices going forward, and that's what we're looking to do. So we're taking a little bit of a conservative approach initially, but we are opening up. I think you're seeing that. And over time, we certainly hope that you'll get the information that you need going forward, and that events like this and others will help provide that to you in a much more upfront fashion than maybe we were right around the time of the acquisition, where it was still kind of learning and understanding what the rules of operations were. And to specifically address EC2, Oracle allows the deployment of Oracle database on EC2 if you have an existing license. I think the similar case will be the case, similar to some of our other solutions that we have with Solaris. If we're able to replicate any sort of issue on a native platform, we'll probably support it. That's what we've talked to the team about. If we can't replicate it on a native platform, then it's an EC2 issue, and we'll associate it back with that, but we won't have a problem if you continue to deploy it. And we can talk more later if you want on EC2 specifically. There was a, yes, sir.
Before the end, I want to say, by the way, my desktop at work is still one of the last 25s.
I think there's a gentleman at the back who has a Sun 1 desktop in his office.
This is the newer 25, not the old Ultra. Anyway,
Yeah.
I had a question about SMF. I talked to you a little bit about, one suggestion I have would be that Oracle would be nice if they provided like a location for people to provide SMF, manifests for things like postfix and other software that isn't part of the standard distribution. I mean, I just did a search for postfix and SMF, and there's a couple of different manifests out there, but it's not on Oracle's website. It's third-party, random places.
So I'll see what I can do about Oracle's website. I can't make any promises there, but I had been trying to collect them on OpenSolaris.org. We do have a site which we're pointing out to other locations. If you look in the SMF community at OpenSolaris.org, it's almost certainly not the most up-to-date thing, but I welcome corrections and pointers to other locations. So.
I think the other thing would be nice if more commands. Well, I recently started being the Glassfish administrator at our site, and one of the commands that ASAP has added is the create service thing. It's really nice to create that service manifest. So now we have Glassfish starting out of SMF and send up a bunch of init scripts. Yep. Because we have some weird requirement we have to turn it off overnight and turn it back on 2 hours later. Oracle snapshots, but so now it's instead of all these init scripts that are complicated, just SVC ADM disable, SVC ADM enable. Excellent. And I wish more commands did that.
Okay. And yeah, we're continuing to work with ISVs, both internal and external, to make that more obvious and integrated across the stack. So.
Since you said the word postfix, can I just ask, can we do like a postfix versus sendmail kind of like popularity contest here? For your Solaris boxes. Sendmail users on Solaris, which is bundled. Okay, how about people who install and use postfix instead? Okay, thanks.
And actually, how many of you are using a non-bundled sendmail? How many of you are compiling your own these days? Okay, fewer than it used to be.
How many of you who are using SendMail would be upset if we switched to postfix?
What if you could switch back and forth to either one you choose? People would like that? If you had your choice of either one?
Only a few people.
Really? Only a couple people in the room? Meanwhile, like half the room is like compiling their own postfix, and only a few of you want a switcher that lets you go back and forth? Really? Okay.
Just give me postfix.
Well, as you can see, we'll have a riot on our hands from the sendmail folks that we'd really like to provide both.
I'd say part of our standard system setup is we disable sendmail. And then it'd be nice if the kernel patch didn't replace SendMail. SendMail doesn't, every once in a while, the kernel patch replaces usually with SendMail, and anyways, write a script to put it back to Postfix. And it'd be nice if SendMail
Fixed to the new packaging system.
Right, but it'd be nice if SendMail stayed in the SendMail patch and not the kernel patch.
We're working on those things too.
Yeah.
What he said for people in the back is he was complaining, very rightly so. I mean, it's not pejorative to say complaining, but legitimately complaining that for some reason sometimes SendMail shows up in the kernel patch, which is admittedly sad. So
this is the evils of patch accumulation that I was talking about this morning.
Patch Katamari.
I explained that one advanced Solaris patching for my key almost every time.
All right, next question, I think, then we'll get to
Speaking of
it.
ancient evils, syslog,
What would you like to see?
something modern, preferably supporting the latest RFC, like syslog, rsyslog, or syslog ng, you know, anything that actually does your GCP and Kerberos and you know, all the other stuff you expect out of syslog.
How many of the people in the room replace syslog with something else? Okay, that's significant.
We will take that back.
Sir?
Also about the ancient evils, if we're not equipped or inclined to switch to ZFS, how evil and ancient is it to still use this suite or SDF, Solaris
10?
It works. I mean, like, we continue to support Disk Suite as a way to, you know, mirror, accumulate, replicate, all of that, Solaris 10. I mean, I don't know of any significant issues, to be perfectly honest.
No, we actually spent a lot of money on it, investing and improving it in the Solaris 10. You know, folks may remember that, you know, Disk Suite spent a long time in the wilderness, right? And then eventually became part of the core product. And there was a team, I think you were part of that team, Dave? No? Oh, okay.
Sanjay.
Okay. But anyway, we actually had a quite large team doing a lot of really complicated work improving that product in the Solaris 10 timeframe. So it was polished substantially.
I worked on the first generation of that in 1989. So.
Yeah, so it continues to be supported and working incredibly well on Solaris 10. And then Solaris 11, it'll be, as far as I'm aware, it continues to work in terms of accessing your legacy, you know, disks and your legacy storage. But on the other hand, by default, the root file system moves to ZFS on Solaris 11.
In fact, it's not even by default. The only root file system that is supported in Solaris 11 is ZFS. You can use whatever you want for your own data, although we recommend ZFS. But the root file system needs to be ZFS so that we can use the facilities that are in to facilitate updating. And the win there is really huge. The first time, if you haven't used the Open Solaris releases, spend some time with Solaris Express. If you don't have the hardware, run it in VirtualBox. You'll see what a difference it makes to your operating system administration. It really makes a difference.
Mirroring root becomes like one command.
So we're going to do a last couple questions in rapid fire because we are at end of time for 8 o'clock. So I think there's one question here, and then we'll get to your question, and then I think we're going to call it. So, yes, sir.
You said you're doing work on the installer. So what's going on there?
That's not a quick question.
What? I only spent an hour and a half there this morning. I can squeeze that into a minute.
Step 20.
10 seconds, Dave. What's going on with the install?
Video will be available. You don't have to do this again.
So the slides are posted.
Other than AI, but I mean, are you talking from CD or are you talking AI?
Oh, there's both, yes. Lots of changes all over the place. Everything changed. Seriously. Firstly, everything changed. And so, I mean, honestly, tomorrow night, Bart and I are doing another BOF. At 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Probably right here.
Good call. Come to the BOF. Yes.
So my question is, since the focus is on ZFS going forward, is there going to be options in hardware to get rid of crappy rate controllers in low-end systems that don't actually do real JBOD?
So you're asking basically like, are you asking will the hardware be designed in that way?
Are we going to have the option to purchase the hardware that will do ZFS properly instead of having to do, you know, the crappy ZAPTEC that doesn't do JBOD and rely on, you know, the questionable
I don't know
Are
personally.
you talking about a particular piece of hardware?
Well, I mean, right now, in one-use systems, that's not an option, you can't get them without the version control. And the
Right.
adapters will not present as real JBOD.
What we've done, and this is a couple of systems we've had where we've had 4 drives, we've ended up just concatenating 2 of the drives together and then mirroring the 2, and ended up with one giant pool. That's now.
Because we're also at time, you may want to talk to the gentleman who's 2 seats in front of you. Okay. Who's trying to hide right now and not answer the question, who happens to be one of the ZFS guys. So.
That's a big sticking point for my organization, because we only, for the most part, we only buy one box.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension here because the folks who are running on other operating system on those same boxes, they don't have a good solution, so they like to see the concatenation of stuff done in hardware, and so there's tension.
Yeah, and I think you may see some things in our hardware that do that, but I suspect with a lot of the kind of low-end kind of 1U or blade type chassis, that might be a lot of non-our hardware. As you get into the more enterprise class, it's more of our hardware that actually effectively handles that better. But I think we can talk about that. So, any last questions before we get Rick up here?
I have one tiny thing, which is that, and you know, you can all throw tomatoes at me if you want, but first of all, thanks for coming, but I'm sure Dan will say that. But we are actually, I mean, one of the things that so people have asked us a lot of questions about, you know, what's it like to be at Oracle versus to be at Sun and all this kind of stuff, and we can talk about that over beers, but one of the big significant changes is that we are hiring. So we are hiring talented people who want to do kernel implementation, want to work on things like Python's code bases, like the IPS and install technologies and networking technologies and all this kind of stuff. That was actually, for a while at Sun, we really couldn't hire, and now we actually have a lot of ability to do that. So if you happen to know somebody who's interested in that, you know, get in touch with one of us. If you're interested in that, you know, get in touch with us. So we are actively really looking for great motivated people to help us.
Yeah, we really need people who can hit the ground running quickly to help us finish up Solaris Lab.
But we'll take college hires too. We love college hires.
And we're interested in a broad set of job classifications as well. So, I mean, kernel engineering, absolutely, but there's test and docs and heck, even product management folks, and nice to your relationship.
And managers.
These guys are unmanageable. I don't recommend it. No. All right. So as Dan said, thank you very much. We do want to get Rick up here so he gets his full time to talk about where we're going with Big Admin and some of the resources we're taking going forward for administrators running Solaris. I do want to thank the panelists for being here and spending time, and thank you very much for spending time with us.